A dream deferred. Russia's missed chance at the West. It seems almost inconceivable now, but there was a time when Russia considered joining NATO and the EU. This was no fleeting thought, but a serious proposition discussed at the highest levels. Today, the very idea seems ludicrous. Russia, under the leadership of Vladimir Putin, is seen as the single biggest threat to the US-led world order and European security. How did we get here? How did a nation that once sought integration with the West become its most ardent adversary? The story is a complex one, a tapestry woven from the threads of history, ideology, and geopolitical ambition. It is a story of missed opportunities, miscalculations, and ultimately, a fundamental clash of visions for the future. To grasp the current state of affairs, we must delve into the past, tracing the arc of this tumultuous relationship from the ashes of the Cold War to the current precipice of conflict. A thaw in the Cold War. Hope for a new partnership, 1991 to 2000. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 signaled not just the end of the Cold War, but the dawn of a new era. The Soviet Union, that behemoth of communist ideology, finally crumbled in 1991. In its wake emerged a fledgling Russian Federation grappling with economic ruin and political uncertainty. Its leader, Boris Yeltsin, looked west for salvation. He sought economic aid, political support, and a place for Russia at the table of global powers. The West, for its part, responded with cautious optimism. There was genuine hope that Russia could transition into a democratic, market-oriented state, integrated into the Western-led system. Russia joined the G7, making it the G8, and engaged in dialogues on military cooperation with NATO. The 1997 NATO-Russia Founding Act, while not a security guarantee, established a framework for consultation and partnership. The West's embrace, however, was not without its limits. The expansion of NATO eastward, incorporating former Soviet bloc countries, was a source of growing unease in Moscow. Nonetheless, the 1990s were a time of unprecedented cooperation and dialogue. The possibility of a truly collaborative relationship, though fraught with challenges, seemed within reach. Seeds of mistrust: NATO, expansion, and the Kosovo War, 1999 to 2004. The hopeful narrative of the 1990s began to unravel as the new millennium dawned. NATO's expansion in 1999 caused anxieties in Moscow. Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic joined NATO. Russia saw this as a betrayal of trust. The Kosovo War in 1999 worsened tensions. NATO's intervention without UN approval angered Moscow. The bombing of Serbia solidified Russia's view of NATO as an adversary. Vladimir Putin became president in 1999. A former KGB officer, Putin distrusted the West. His rise marked a shift towards a more assertive foreign policy. Putin's Russia, a resurgence of power and grievance, 2004 to 2014. Under Putin's leadership, Russia underwent a period of significant economic recovery, fueled by soaring oil and gas prices. This newfound wealth was channeled into strengthening the military and reasserting Russia's influence on the world stage. Putin's vision for Russia was clear: a great power, respected and feared, its interests no longer to be ignored. At the same time, Putin oversaw a crackdown on dissent at home, and adopted an increasingly confrontational stance towards the West. He rejected the notion of EU-style integration, viewing it as a threat to Russian sovereignty. The color revolutions in Ukraine, Georgia, and Kyrgyzstan, which brought pro-Western governments to power, were seen by Putin as Western-orchestrated plots to weaken Russia. The 2008 Russo-Georgian War was a watershed moment, demonstrating Russia's willingness to use military force to defend what it perceived as its vital interests. The conflict, though brief, sent shockwaves through the international community and shattered any remaining illusions about a harmonious relationship between Russia and the West. The stage was set for a far greater confrontation. Section 5 Ukraine: the Rubicon crossed from 2014 to the present. The simmering tensions between Russia and the West erupted in 2014 with the Ukraine crisis. Ukraine, a country with deep historical and cultural ties to Russia, became the epicenter of a geopolitical tug-of-war. The Euromaidan protests, sparked by then-President Viktor Yanukovych's decision to abandon an association agreement with the European Union in favor of closer ties with Russia, led to his ouster and a pro-Western government coming to power in Kiev. Russia, viewing this as a direct threat to its interests, responded with force. It annexed the Crimean Peninsula, a Ukrainian territory with a majority Russian population, and provided military support to separatists in eastern Ukraine. The West, outraged by Russia's actions, imposed sanctions and bolstered its military presence in Eastern Europe. The full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 marked a dramatic escalation of the conflict. It was a watershed moment, not only for Russia and Ukraine, but for the entire international order. The invasion shattered the post-Cold War peace in Europe and plunged relations between Russia and the West to their lowest point since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Section 6. The military threat, aggression and expansion. Russia's actions in Ukraine have made its military ambitions abundantly clear. The invasion is a blatant act of aggression, a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. It has shattered the illusion that such conflicts are a relic of the past, and it has sent a chilling message to other countries on Russia's periphery. You could be next. Beyond Ukraine, Russia has engaged in provocative military exercises near the borders of NATO members, particularly in the Baltic region. These actions, coupled with increasingly bellicose rhetoric from Moscow, have raised fears of a wider conflict. Russia's nuclear arsenal, the largest in the world, adds another layer of complexity and danger to the situation. Russia's military modernization program, underway for over a decade, has significantly enhanced its capabilities. Its armed forces are now equipped with advanced weaponry, including hypersonic missiles, sophisticated air defense systems, and cyber warfare capabilities. This military buildup, coupled with its willingness to use force, has made Russia the most significant conventional military threat to Europe since the end of the Cold War. Section 7. Hybrid warfare, disinformation and destabilization. Russia's challenge to the West extends far beyond conventional military means. Moscow has become adept at waging what is known as hybrid warfare, a blend of conventional and unconventional tactics designed to sow discord, undermine democratic institutions, and weaken its adversaries from within. Disinformation and propaganda are key elements of this strategy. Russia uses state-controlled media outlets, social media platforms, and covert online operations to spread false narratives, manipulate public opinion, and exacerbate existing divisions within Western societies. These efforts aim to undermine trust in democratic institutions, sow confusion, and create an environment conducive to Russian influence. Cyber attacks are another tool in Russia's hybrid warfare arsenal. Russia has been linked to numerous cyber attacks targeting Western governments, businesses, and critical infrastructure. These attacks range from distributed denial-of-service attacks to sophisticated intrusions aimed at stealing data, disrupting operations, and sowing chaos. Russia's willingness to engage in such activities poses a serious threat to the security and stability of the digital realm. Section 8. A new axis. Russia's growing ties with China and Iran. Russia's estrangement from the West has pushed it closer to other countries that share its antipathy towards the US-led world order. This has led to a burgeoning strategic partnership with China, a relationship driven by shared interests and a common desire to challenge Western hegemony. The Russia-China axis has deepened in recent years, encompassing increased military cooperation, joint exercises, and growing economic ties. The two countries have also found common ground in their opposition to NATO expansion, their support for authoritarian regimes, and their efforts to reshape the international system in their favor. Russia has also strengthened its ties with Iran, another country at odds with the West. The two countries have cooperated militarily in Syria, and Russia has provided Iran with advanced weaponry. The growing relationship between Moscow and Tehran poses a significant challenge to Western interests in the Middle East and beyond. Section 9. A bridge too far? The uncertain future of Russia and the West. The relationship between Russia and the West stands at a crossroads. The invasion of Ukraine has shattered any remaining illusions of partnership and has plunged relations to their lowest point in decades. The chasm of mistrust, suspicion, and animosity that now divides Russia from the West appears wider than ever before. Whether a bridge can be built across this chasm remains to be seen. There are those who believe that dialogue and diplomacy, however difficult, must be pursued in order to avoid a catastrophic escalation of tensions. Others argue that Russia, under Putin's leadership, is an inherently revisionist power, bent on undermining the West and restoring its sphere of influence, and that any attempt at reconciliation would be futile. The future of Russia and the West hangs in the balance. The choices made in the coming months and years will determine whether this relationship descends into a new Cold War with all its attendant risks and uncertainties, or whether a path towards a more stable and secure future can be found. The stakes could not be higher.